Nick joins me here, and you could learn what his team is up to by going to leadminingpros.com. You can guess what we're going to be talking about today. Everything associated with lead generation. That's what.
Right.
So I really appreciate your time here, Nicholas.
Yeah, hell yeah, to be here.
So you've been doing this for quite a while now, 8+ years.
Yeah, this is our 8th year in business, man. And it's wild to think that I used to scrub floors in a restaurant for a living. And now here I am making investors rich for a living. Much cleaner too.
Well, that's curiosity. Like you were working in restaurants, some pretty big chains too, that I understand. Like, how did you? Well, I see people every once in a while falling into real estate investing, but lead gen?
I was a high level restaurant manager. I really focused on employee happiness and results. My restaurants always, even if I was in a crappy sales restaurant, my numbers were always the best. That's why they love me, right? When they could stick you to the restaurant that never profits and you still profit, you're the hero. And what happened was after 13 years, that's a long freaking time, I've been saying it out loud. I looked around, and when you're really good and you have a job, they surround you with shit. Okay. And I had all these shitty managers all around me because they knew I was good. So I'd carry these bad employees all across the restaurant. And I'm looking around going, I'm so much different than everybody. But why am I still here? Like, I don't know if this is really my industry anymore. And so I left that and I got a job working for a real estate education company. One of the biggest ones out there. They were doing 15 million a year when I first jumped on. And my first job was to throw events for them. And I was like, well, I feel like restaurants are events that just happen for 15 hours a day. Right? So I took the job, I crushed it. And then I start working for Dean Graziosi. I start working for other big names in the industry, throwing events for them. Then I started getting into fulfillment. And what fulfillment is making sure that when someone buys an education program, it was my job to make sure we delivered on their happiness. And one of the big things that makes people happy is leads. So I learned very quickly at these education companies that the education is actually not what's important. It is actually, are we getting leads in their hands? I always say, if you pursue leads and you actually do the work, you're going to learn way more than any education company is going to teach you. So getting the leads in your hands are so important. And so that came up, and then I began cold calling and text messaging, and before I knew it, I had this amazing lead generation company.
Yeah. So let's talk about the lead generation piece. A lot of people get into this and they kind of want a lot of this done for them. What are some of the pieces that you help with?
So one of the cool things about us is we're completely done for you. All you do is you go to the website, you make a purchase, and then you tell us the city you want us to pull your leads in. We'll pull the leads for you. You tell us the property value, the equity amounts. You tell us everything you're looking for. We'll pull the list for you. After we pull the list, we get everyone's phone numbers for you. That's called skip tracing. And then we have American callers or foreign callers. You get to choose when you work with us. And a good rule of thumb there is Americans is for suburban areas or land. And then foreign callers are for saturated markets, like let's say Dallas or Miami or Orlando or something like that. Something that's the whole world knows about. That's what the foreign callers are for. Then our cold callers call everyone. We ask them if they want to sell or not. And if they do, we then send the lead over to you immediately after asking qualifying questions. And then we text message everybody. So we offer those, we pull the list, we skip trace it, we call it, and we text it all in one package, one payment, and no contracts or commitments. So it's really easy for you. You just get a yes lead now, and you just have to follow up with that yes lead yourself.
So you obviously also then provide a lot of training material to those people, boots on the ground, because there's got to be a lot of work.
That's right. One of my big things is I offer a ton of free education on my website. If you go to that website that was down below, leadminingpros.com, right now at the top, it says free courses. You can get them all right now for yourself. And with those free courses, I literally tell you exactly what to say and exactly what to do. I tell you how to comp the properties. I provide scripts, written out processes, and a flow chart all for free. And the reason why I do that is because if I'm going to be sending you leads, I don't want you guessing what to do next, right? I want you to know what the perfect action is. And I teach that to all my clients for free.
I think that it's really smart regarding the way you set that up, because them actually seeing the value in the end as a closed deal. Right.
And if I got them before they bought a $20,000 mentorship program, they even begin to see the value in that too, right? It's like the ones that are about to buy a big, costly program, they get to spend $1,000 with me and get all the education. And then if they still want the mentorship program, they can still get it, right? So I'm kind of like at training wheels almost to the newer folk who are coming into the space.
Mm-hmm. So based on everything you do there, you still do direct mail then?
We don't do direct mail yet. I have been considering it because everything I do is done for you, and direct mail is kind of done for you already. But I am considering adding it in just to make the package even. Imagine me saying list, skip, calls, text, and mail. I mean, we'd be doing it all under the same roof, but that might be coming in the next 2 months.
I was just going to ask you, like, based on your experience, because when in our local market, I do direct mail and bandit signs, and we're trying to do all kinds of different things to attract those buyers. Do you find that, well, you primarily stick to the cold calling and texting?
Yeah. And what I tell people is this: direct mail is great. They're great leads. There's a cost to it though, right? Direct mail leads are like $200 to $500 each, So what I tell people is if you're new, you do not have the skill or the money to learn a lesson for $500. If that phone rings and you fumble your word, $500 gone, right? Now, the beauty of cold calling and text messaging is the leads come in much lower cost. In the best cases, $25 to $35 per lead. In the worst cases, $150. But that's still a fraction of what direct mail costs. So I always say, what would you rather learn on? Would you rather learn on a $500 opportunity or a $50 to $100 opportunity? So that's one of my big things. Now, direct mail is great, and the leads are often easier, right? So there's a benefit for the extra cost. And I always say direct mail leads, they either tell you to F off or they tell you that you want to sell, right? Those are one of two things. Now, cold calling and text messaging leads, they're a little rougher around the edges. But again, for someone new, that's even better. It means you're going to learn faster. You're going to have to call the lead, build a relationship with them, talk to them, and then make an offer. As to where direct mail is like, how much do you want to give me, right? As to where cold calling, we actually have to chisel away a little bit at it. Now, those are the things I teach in my courses, so it's not guesswork, but that exchange is really important to understand. Cold calling and texting, you put in more time. Direct mail, you put in more money. And I also like calling and texting because you get a greater opportunity. If we cold call somebody and they go, hey, have you ever thought of selling? They go, no. Well, my team says, well, it certainly sounds like you thought about it. We get a whole nother opportunity to get a lead. When someone gets direct mail, we honestly don't even know if they saw it. The way I check my mail is I open up my mailbox and everything that's colorful, I throw away, right?
Mhm.
And then everything that's an envelope, I keep, right? And so it's like a lot of direct mail marketing doesn't even hit my eyes because it goes right in the trash. And the other perk of the calling and texting is, we spoke to them and they saw that text message. So it's a little bit more thorough, I find.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny you bring that up regarding that people calling and telling you to F off, because those people who've left messages even like that on my system, I'll still call them back just to apologize for causing such an offense. And then I have gotten some of my best deals because of it.
Sure. That's right, because they're calling you upset because they're frustrated. So it's like you doing that in my eyes is you showing them how different you are, right? Than everyone else, which is one of my principles. If you treat somebody a way they've never been treated before, you're going to get results that they've never given before. So I'm a huge fan of wowing the sellers and going above and beyond. And I bet that's that exact effect that's happening.
Yeah, that's typical. And sometimes there's something else that's causing the anger. Right. So it can be an indication that there is that distress there that you might want to explore and open that door.
That's right. And there's a bunch of indicators of great leads. A lot of people say, well, Nick, I can't get him back on the phone. That's a great sign. You know why? It means no one else can get him back on the phone either, which means if you actually get him on the phone, everyone else has already given up. And again, it's not being discouraged, but it's actually being empowered, right? And that's what both of those lessons are, the one you shared And then when I should, it's like, oh, they cussed me out. Oh, no, it's okay. Hey, babe, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I'll add you to my removed list. What comes from that can be huge.
Yeah. It is always fascinating because I will even have a tendency of handwriting notes to individuals after I've had a conversation, just as a little thank you. And I just had a phone call last week where somebody called me because their mother or somebody passed away and they found my note. She had kept it in the drawer and they called me because now they're ready to sell.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's one thing I tell people too. If they don't want to sell, I have this great line I'll just share with everybody real quick. No, I'm not interested in selling. Well, we said, would you maybe mind taking down my direct line? And if anything ever changes, just giving me a call. And when you say maybe mind, you're actually yes, I mind. Yes, no, I know, no, like they almost don't even, no matter what they're saying, yes. And what I always share is if it's not a lead, the best thing you can do is make it a lead, right? And so getting that sticky note somewhere, hey, could you say Nicholas Real Estate? Could you store me in your phone as Nicholas Real Estate? And then, give them all the answers. When you want to find me later, just type real estate into your phone and I'll be there. And I really recommend those strategies too. So I totally agree with that.
So, Nicholas, I got to ask you a couple of questions about entrepreneurship, but most importantly, you have a level of energy that's kind of infectious. What are you doing there to maintain such a high level of excitement?
I'm going to get really vulnerable with you real quick. So I've been in a rut these last couple months. I live in Florida. My house flooded back in September. I lost my father 2 years ago. And my house caught on fire like 6 months after. It was like crazy. My father died. My house caught on fire. It was a small fire, but I couldn't live here for a month. And then it flooded a year later. And so I've been put through the ringer recently. Now, my average demeanor is high energy. Recently, I've been struggling with that. So today I feel great, which is awesome. It's hard when you think nothing's ever going to happen to your dad and something happens. Right.
Mhm.
And no matter how old your dad is, you still think nothing's ever going to happen to him. He's been around my whole life. What do you mean he's going somewhere? Right. I never thought water was going to rush in from the floor and take my home away from me, but I share all that just to be vulnerable and honest with everybody. It's not all wins everywhere. But what I do is I make sure I have a good practice every morning. I work out every day, no matter what. I don't care if it's a 5-minute workout. I try to do what makes me happy every day. I have this thing outside called a one wheel. That's electric skateboard kind of thing. I ride that every day for an hour, and I make sure that I do things that feed my soul. And whether I'm going through something or not, it helps having that consistent basis, So I've got a couple of daily routines. I take daily Epsom salt baths. I work out every day for at least 5 minutes. I know it sounds stupid, but it's not 0 minutes. And then I also try to make sure I'm like being a little bit healthy and reducing my alcohol intake, which is something I've done since my father passed away. I started drinking a little bit more and then I had to taper off of that. So I'm getting a little personal, but it's about managing. It's about understanding what's bringing you down and what's bringing you up. Over time, I just try to do less of what brings me down. I was watching this really intense TV show. It was bringing me down. We're more sensitive than we think we are. I love horror movies and stuff. I'm not saying anything about that, but when you're fragile, you really need to respect where you are. So that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. It's one of those things you start to, we'll hear some people like the gurus who will tell you to stop being distracted by some of those things. But whether it's a TV show or whatever, you need to be putting in 16 hours a day. But I definitely, in my situation, you probably notice I have headphones and stuff hanging on my wall. If I don't spend a few minutes at least enjoying a couple songs here and there, just kind of taking a breath, can completely derail me for the day.
Yeah. Music is such a source of happiness and energy, to your point. And no matter what I love about music, no matter what you're doing, it works. But no, yeah, you're exactly right. We have to know what relieves our pressure valves and what fills us up with pressure too.
Just to remind everybody, leadminingpros.com, leadminingpros.com. You're going to find a lot of information there, including some free training. And if you found some value in what we're talking about so far, do us a quick favor, share this with one of your investor friends. So, Nicholas, you had mentioned previously some indicators that make a good lead. Could you maybe share a few more of those as to some
Yeah.
things that people might miss?
Yeah. So, man, I'll tell you, I've got some good training on leads. Okay. First of all, a good lead is not someone who says everything on the first phone call. Some of the biggest mistakes we make is this isn't a lead. They don't want 50 cents on the dollar. I'll tell you right now, no one is like, oh, please give me half of whatever my house is worth. I've been waiting for you to call.
Right.
They can call anyone and sell their house for half. Anybody. So the first thing is don't overjudge a lead. Don't look at notes and get discouraged. You know what I think is the biggest qualifier of a great lead? That's their energy. Okay. If you call somebody and they're really easy to talk to, that's a good lead. Like our conversation right now. If you were a lead of mine, man, we chopped it up. Oh my God, we had so much fun. Yeah. I don't care if you wanted twice as much as what I'm willing to pay for. Right. So energy, in my opinion, is the biggest motivator. Now, that being said, I tell all my clients, if you call a lead and they're a total asshole, hang up on that person. Okay. Even if they sign the contract, they're going to drive you crazy over the next 60 days with their threats to cancel and everything else. So energy, in my opinion, is the greatest motivator that someone can have. So if they're easy to talk to, let them be. Do not hang up that phone. That's my number one rule. The next thing I say is every lead is worth 2 to 5 minutes of your time. Okay. The notes sucked. Yeah. Well, did you call them? I have customers say all the time, the notes did you call them? I just told you the notes sucked. Yeah. So you didn't call them. Right. Yeah. So that's not good. Maybe they didn't say everything. We just called them. We just spoke to them for the first time. One of my favorite lines is, and when he was alive, but I don't even know what my father is going through. And he's the closest person to me. Why would I expect to know what this complete stranger is going through in a 10-minute phone call? So we need to really dive in and build a relationship with this person and allow them to tell us what's going on, tell us what's wrong. It's not easy for a homeowner to admit that they ran their home into the ground.
Right.
It's like, that's a very personal thing. Oh yeah, the toilets don't flush. Yeah, they're not going to tell you this stuff on the first, my screensaver picked up. They're not going to tell you this stuff on the very first call. Right. So we need to really work towards that. So every lead gets 2 to 5 minutes of your time and check their energy. Then if their energy is good, we keep the lead going. Before that, a good lead is anyone who's indicated that they've considered selling. Okay. So many people, to be a false yes in 2025 is the dumbest thing in the world. Between all the AI and the follow-up systems, if you're saying yes, you want to sell when you do not want to sell, you're an idiot. Okay. Because you just open the door to 10 more phone calls, 50 more text messages. Right. So if someone actually says yes today, take them seriously. They're a tire kicker. Well, I know very few tire kickers that just opted into 50 more phone calls and 50 more text messages. Right. And that's the reality. Another thing I would say is we do ask qualifying questions. Our qualifying questions, I'll cover them real quick if that's okay, Jack. So there's 12 of them. I'll rattle them off quickly. We've been around for a while, so I got it all memorized. Any general repairs needed on the house? How old's the roof? When was the last time it was remodeled? Are there any tenants in the property? Is there a mortgage on the property? How much is left on the mortgage? What's your timeline to sell? How much do you want to sell for? Are you open to receiving that full amount in monthly payments? Okay. I call that a sneaky owner finance question. If I were to ask them, do you want to do owner financing? Hell no, I don't want to do owner financing. Are you open to receiving $500,000 in monthly payments? Right? It's kind of like, it's different. It hits different. Then we ask them for a better phone number, a better email, and the best time for us to follow back up with them. Okay. So those are our qualifying questions that we try to ask for our clients. In my opinion, we're looking here for low mortgages. We're looking for a good timeline to sell, and we're looking for a good reason to sell. The last thing I'll share is what makes a good lead. I used to have a business partner that said this. When you make your follow-up call and you have them complaining like that fucking tenant, he did this and he did that and he did. He's like, when you got them emotional like that, that's the reason they want to sell, right? And
Mhm.
so I really like that strategy. So look for where their triggers are with this property. I'll tell you guys, I own a 9-unit, I own a 4-unit, I own 3 single family houses. I hate all of them. Okay. Houses are great until you lose sleep because of it. I'll tell you
Mhm.
right now, I got a 4-unit in Vermont. I'll sell that thing right now. Give me a call, 250K. It's worth 380 ARV. Okay, I'm not kidding. I'll sell it for 250K today. I am over it. And I'm a perfect distress seller. It's not because I need the money. It's because I need my stress back. I don't want to think
Right.
about these tenants anymore. And so when you think about my situation, even being a millionaire and still willing to sell at a discount, think about how many other people are out there tired of their property too.
Yeah. I can't echo any of that enough, especially the concept of when you're talking to these distressed homeowners, you have to be in the position of realizing that in many situations, this might be the first time they've said something out loud. Like they're emotionally dealing with this. You're the person there being the therapist in a way. You're the one that's asking a few questions and getting uncomfortable and letting them vent a little bit.
I love that. I used to say that exact line. This is their first time they've ever even said they've wanted to sell out loud either, right? And my cold callers are really good. They're American. They're going to get yeses even when the answer is no sometimes, or they're going to get the first yes ever that's been said. And I think that's a very important lesson. We have to understand where they're at in the process. And then we want to almost show up fun, like with kid gloves. You know, this isn't a high pressure negotiation sales tactic. If you guys watch my courses, what I teach you to do is I teach you how to get the seller to love you. That's what I teach. Because if they love you, they're going to get a great price. If you're hard negotiating with them, they might still sell it to you, but they're going to hate you at the end of that transaction, having all these people hating them. You could have gotten that same price by being a little bit nicer, a little bit slower, and a little bit cleaner. So those are the strategies I teach as well.
Well, if you can tell, we've only hit the tip of the iceberg. There is going to be a lot more great content over at leadminingpros.com, leadminingpros.com. That's going to be a clickable link in the show notes. Before we jump into the rapid fire questions and close out this episode, Nicholas, is there anything we should have tried to hit on?
The last thing I would just say is for those getting leads, there's this culture of over disqualifying leads that I see a lot of people do. And they're like, they think they're real estate investing by getting the lead to admit that they don't want to sell faster. So I had one client tell me, I call these leads and I say, you don't really want to sell, do you? And I'm like, what? Like, imagine going on a date with anybody and they're like, you don't really want to be here with me, do you? Right? Like, what? So there's this weird culture where we think we're moving forward in our businesses by getting no's faster, and I think that you want to actually work that lead and work with them and try to get them to a yes. Your goal is not to get, if they told us yes or told you yes in the past, the answer is yes. Let's not reconfirm that. Now you need to show up and make sure you keep that answer a yes. So I would just be weary of, I've said this, they're probably going to ring some bells. Stop over disqualifying leads. If they said yes, the answer is yes. Stop trying to get them back off of the phone. That's not how you make money. You make money by keeping them on the phone longer and building a better relationship.
Well, I think I know where some of this comes from. As much as I'm a huge fan of Chris Voss and some of that sales methodology, there's a little finesse there that needs to be accounted for. And there's also a popular book, Get to the No.
Just so everyone knows, the no is that I have to call 1,000 people to get you 5 leads. So that means I got 995 no's to get to that yes. But once they say yes, we cannot turn them into a no. That does not do us any favor, right? You send out 5,000 direct mail pieces, you get 10 leads. That means 4,990 no's came back. You don't need more no's than 4,909.
This has been such a fantastic conversation. We're going to transition into the rapid fire questions and close out this episode.
Yes, sir.
So, Nicholas, what lie do real estate investors often tell themselves?
It's too easy. They think they don't have to put in the work. They think they could hire me put on a $3 an hour VA to do acquisitions, put a $3 an hour VA to do comms, and they think they can just sit back and make thousands of dollars. When the reality is, in my business, I was the only employee for 6 months. Those first 6 months, I made $360,000. After that, I hired out everything. I had all the reps I needed. But if you don't know how to do it yourself, don't you dare hire someone else to do it yet, unless they're like the best in your state.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Keep going, motherfucker. You're doing great. And I say that because we second guess ourselves where we are all the time. I hated my restaurant career. I hated that I spent 13 years there. And for 4 years after I left, I hated myself for not leaving sooner. But then when I founded this business, every problem that came my way, I'd already fixed in the restaurant industry. And one little nugget for everyone is you would rather learn lessons on someone else's dime than your own. I learned a lot while someone else paid me to be a restaurant manager that I did not have to learn now as a business owner. So my thing would be keep going.
Do you have a book recommendation?
My favorite book in the world is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've listened to it over 5 times. Stephen Covey is basically my grandpa by now. It is the most powerful book you'll ever read in your life. I call it my life Bible. Whenever I'm feeling lost in life, I have to listen to it again. And every time I've listened to it, I've heard a completely different book because it's where you're at in the world that you hear totally, but it's where you're at in the world that changes that. And I guess all these goosebumps means it's time for another lesson, time for another reading.
And finally, what strategy or tool have you implemented that has had the biggest time-saving impact to you or your business?
Employees are everything. Being a great leader is everything. Being a great trainer is everything. And being great at development is everything. I have 30 employees now, and I finally have my life back. It's tough at first. The first 6 months with an employee, it's worse than not having one. But after those 3 to 6 months, it starts getting better, especially if you're a good leader and if you've trained them properly. So a service like mine could be that, like when you hire us, we're basically like 5 employees wrapped up into one, and they're managed by me. And we can maintain, but we cannot go up if we are operating in the same fashion or at the same capacity.
One last time, leadminingpros.com. This was just fantastic, Nicholas. I hope you'll consider coming back again very soon.
This was great. Thank you so much, Jack.